decide to come to UGA and join Charlene and Hamilton, the three of us were alums of Turner High School, though they were, of course, younger than me, and they came after me. I was in the first graduating class of Turner, and I was valedictorian in my class, and Hamilton was also valedictorian. I went back to Turner to do my student teaching, which is rather unusual because they usually don't send you back to where you've gone. But I did, and at that time I met Charlene. She was the editor of the Green Light, which was a high school newspaper, and she wanted to interview me about my writing the school song because I had written the school song. I was there only 2 years. When they built it, they transferred some people to Turner, and I was one of those who was transferred. But they didn't transfer any seniors; they transferred juniors. So we were seniors twice in 11th grade and 12th. But at any rate, I spoke with her and told her about writing the school song, and I was very impressed with her. Hamilton, while I was student teaching, I found was a top student, and he was also a very valued member of the football team at Turner. And so I knew them. And when I saw I guess it was a televised, it was a televised account of the riots on January the 11th, and saw them being ushered back to Atlanta, supposedly for their own safety, I was just infuriated. I thought that the university, because I had followed I guess, all of the court cases and things, and when they finally were admitted, I was so happy, and I thought, this is the way it should be. But at that time, I didn't want to attend the University of Georgia. I was at the University of Michigan, and was very happy there doing my graduate study. But when I saw the picture of them being suspended from campus and sent back to Atlanta, I was so infuriated. I was living with my mother at the time, and I told her, I'm going to go to University of Georgia. I'm going to transfer from University of Michigan to University of Georgia because they need help. I said, I'm a graduate student, and they're undergraduates, and somebody needs to open the doors of the graduate school also. I applied 3 days after the riot, and at first I got the application back very quickly from UGA, and when I had my transcript sent, they realized that I was black, and that's when all of it began, because they did a lot of things trying to keep me out. They didn't want another black. They had two, and they didn't want another one, even though it was a graduate student. And they did, investigative report, which was 11 pages, and it's in the Russell Library, but it asked if I had an illegitimate child, and if I had a venereal disease, if I had shoplifted, just all those crazy things that were very insulting. But they decided that they had to admit me, and so they did. But it took 5 months, and of course I was going to go in the summer anyway because I was teaching. I couldn't go during I did eventually, but I couldn't go during the school year because I had a job. But when I went, Charlene and Hamilton, that was the summer of 1961, Charlene and Hamilton had gone home for the summer, and I think Charlene was working at the Louisville Times, and Hamilton was a lifeguard here in Atlanta. And I was a lone black student on campus, and I got the same kind of treatment they did. It was not pleasant, but there were many, many things that happened. I remember one thing in particular that I'll share with you, and it was the GRE exam, which they required at UGA of all graduate students. And in their trying to find out about my personal life, they didn't find out that I had not taken it because it was not required at the University of Michigan. So I went to the Ag Auditorium to take this exam. And I sat down on a row. I didn't sit close to anyone, but when I sat down, everybody on the row got up and moved. And somehow psychologically that just kind of destroyed me. But I persevered and did okay on the exam, because they would have put me out if I hadn't. But anyway, things happened all during the summer, and I did quite well because there was nothing else to do. You know, Athens was not the Athens of today. There weren't very many places where blacks could go. And so I stayed in the same room where Charlene had been housed before when they did riot. And I just studied and did well. Well, when I came home, I decided that I was going to take a leave of absence from a teaching job and go back the spring quarter, because there were quarters then, not semesters. And then I would go through the summer quarters, and because there were 2 summer quarters, it was a long quarter and then a short quarter, 4 weeks and 6 weeks. At any rate, that's how I finished before them, because I had credits from the University of Michigan, which the registrar, Walter and Danner, told me they did not have to accept. And I thought, you're not going to accept credits from the University of Michigan? And it's one of the top 10 universities. But anyway, they did accept some of my credits. And so I wrote my thesis and during the summer, and I graduated in August of 62. How was it like? And that was when I roomed with Charlene during the spring of 62 and the summer of 62. We were both there, and we both wanted to be in another dorm, because Center Myers was really a freshman dorm, and we did not come into contact with any other students because all of the dorm rooms were really upstairs. We were on the first floor in what had been a counselor's suite, I think. And there were 2 bedrooms. Well, there were 2 rooms that they converted into bedrooms. There was a small kitchenette and a bathroom, and I'm sure that they wanted us to use the kitchen rather than to go to the dining hall to eat, but we didn't. And that one was not integrated because we didn't come into contact with any of the other students. But we talked. We had meals occasionally. She was in journalism and I was in music, so we didn't have any classes together. But it was good to have someone there, because before it was a very lonely existence that first summer. What made you get up every morning? The fact that I never thought, I wasn't trying to be the first graduate. I was merely trying to help bring about more equity in terms of civil rights, human rights. As a citizen of Georgia and paying taxes, I felt that I had the right to attend UGA. But getting up each morning was a challenge because one never knew what might happen during the day. It was, sometimes you would find your car vandalized. Other times people would throw lemons at you in the dining hall. There were just a series of things that made you feel, well, I've got to do this. But the one thing that helped me, Charles, was the fact that when I was able to go home on the weekends, I don't know how many weekends you go home, but I tried to go home as often as possible so I'd have somebody to talk with, number one. But secondly, I went to Dr. King's church. Martin Luther King Jr. had been in Atlanta just a short time then, and he was preaching on alternate Sundays with his father, who was the senior minister. And I wanted to hear more about his nonviolent philosophy, and just to hear him speak was an inspiration because it gave me enough, I guess, courage to live through the rest of the week. So I have always admired him, but he really was an icon in my life at that time and even afterwards. When I graduated, he sent me a letter, which I'm very proud of, and he said that he almost considered me a member of his church rather than a visitor, and that he was congratulating me because I had helped to bring Georgia closer to the American dream. And when I think about his dream speech, I think about that letter because he always had that vision, and that to me is what took us through, all of us, because we weren't trying to be heroes or anything. We were just trying to